Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we are cracking open the Fashion Business Manual to get into one of the biggest questions there is for any aspiring designer. You've got the vision, you've got the passion, but where on earth do you actually start? Well, let's find out.
So I'm guessing if you're here, that dream is very, very real for you. You can probably already see the clothes, the shows, the people lining up to buy your designs. It's an incredible vision, right? But before we get to any of that, the manual starts us off with a pretty serious reality check. The first lesson in the book isn't some secret design trick, it's a warning. It says flat out, this is going to be hard. And that's not to scare you off, it's to prepare you. It frames it perfectly, actually. It's like you're the captain of a ship, but you don't have a map. Your only goal at first is to find the next port and just survive. And these truths, they really build on each other. First, you have to accept that making a profit is tough. Then you realize that your amazing designs, they're just not enough. You have to have the business chops to back it up. And all of this means, of course, that success isn't going to happen overnight, and it's definitely not going to be glamorous all the time. Which brings us to the most important truth of them all. You just have to keep going. That's the core of it, the grit to take 2 steps forward for every 1 step back. Okay, so if it's all that chaotic, how do you even begin to build something that can handle all that pressure? The manual gives us a really clear answer. You start with your brand. That's it. That is the foundation for everything else you're going to build. And think of it this way. Your branding direction, that's your compass. When you're out on that wild, unpredictable sea we were just talking about, your brand is the one thing that will always point you toward your true north. It's what guides every single decision you make. Okay, so that sounds great in theory, right? Your compass. But what does that actually mean? Like, what do you do on Monday morning? If branding is the answer, where's the real starting line? Well, the manual points us to 2 very specific, very actionable places to begin. So the first step is a little counterintuitive. To define your brand, you don't start by looking at yourself. You start by looking at everybody else. Before you can figure out who you are, you've got to know who you're not. And that means you have to get a deep, deep understanding of the world you're about to jump into. And here's where it gets really interesting. The manual makes this critical distinction. You've got your direct competition. That's the easy one, right? Other clothing brands. But the real genius is in understanding your indirect competition. Think about it. A customer isn't just deciding between your jacket and some other brand's jacket. They're deciding how to spend their extra money. That means your competition could be a new iPhone, tickets to a concert, a vacation. You're not just competing for their closet space. You're competing for a piece of their lifestyle. And this is where it all clicks. When you see a map like this, you're forced to plot out that entire world. And by seeing where everyone else is clustered, you suddenly see the empty spaces. You see the gaps, the untapped opportunities. This is how you discover what makes you different. It's how you find the answer to the biggest question of all. Why should someone choose me?
All right, now for the second step. Once you've mapped out the world around you, it's time to define your own territory. And the manual gives us this just brilliantly simple exercise to do it. Boil down the very heart of your brand into just 3 words. Just look at this list. Words like adventurous, minimal, luxurious, rebellious. The task is simple. Pick only 3. Just 3 words that will be your brand's DNA. And you can see how the biggest brands on the planet do this. Kenzo, freedom, cheerful, generous. Nike, innovative, sustainable, performance. These aren't just fluffy adjectives. They are razor-sharp strategic decisions.
And these 3 words, they become your ultimate filter for everything. Everything. Let's say your words are minimal, sustainable, calm. You can immediately ask yourself, does this really loud, complex print fit our brand? Is this synthetic fabric the right choice for us? It's the simplest tool you can imagine to make sure every single part of your brand is saying the exact same thing.
And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, and maybe the most important principle of all. Once you have your words, once you've defined that message, you have to stick to it. The real secret to becoming a memorable brand is just absolute relentless consistency.
Your brand needs one single, direct message. That's it. This becomes your North Star. In a world where trends are changing every 5 minutes, this message is the one thing your audience can grab onto. It's who you are. So how do you pull that off? Well, first you lock in that single message. Then you repeat it over and over and over again in everything you do. That focus has to apply to your products too. You have to fight that temptation to be everything to everybody. And finally, you write it down. You create guidelines so your entire team is on the same page, building the same dream.
So what does that kind of consistency actually look like in the real world? It's so much more than just your logo. It is literally everything. Every single time a customer interacts with your brand, it's a chance to reinforce who you are. We're talking about the paper bag they carry out of the store, the business card you give someone, the packing tape on a box, even the letterhead you use.
And it just keeps going. The design of your gift boxes, the little hang tags on the clothes, the wrapping paper, even the uniforms your team wears. When every last detail tells the exact same story, your brand becomes impossible to forget.
The manual just says it perfectly. Being consistent avoids confusion. It allows customers to understand what your brand stands for and helps them recognize you instantly. And that instant recognition, that right there, that's the whole game. So yeah, the path is hard, but it's not a mystery. According to the Fashion Business Manual, that very first step is to build a brand with a single, direct, and powerfully consistent message. You have the framework now. So the only question left is, what will your 3 words be?
You know that t-shirt you're wearing? It didn't just, poof, appear on the shelf. Nope. It's been on this incredible global journey of design, engineering, and logistics. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that secret life. I mean, have you ever really stopped to think about it? The whole journey, from a designer's first little spark of an idea all the way to the clothing rack, it's way more complex than you might think. So let's trace that path together. Okay, whoa. So looking at this, this 12-step process seems like a lot. It's pretty intimidating, right? But don't worry, we're going to break this whole thing down and make it simple. We'll focus on the key stages, starting with the most important part of all, the idea. Right, so every single piece of clothing, and I mean everything, whether it's a basic t-shirt or some fancy gown, it doesn't start with a needle and thread. It starts with a plan, a solid, really detailed blueprint. And that blueprint is called a project brief. Think of it as the master plan for the garment. If you get this part wrong, everything that follows is just chaos. This is what gets everyone on the same page about who they're making it for, what it should cost, the whole style. It makes sure the thing you end up with is the thing you wanted to make in the first place. So the best project briefs, they use something called the SMART framework. It's a way to force the designers to be super specific about the look, right? To have measurable goals for how many to make, and to be timely with deadlines. This is what turns a cool idea that's just floating around into an actual product that you can make, and more importantly, that you can sell. All right, so the plan is locked in. Now it's time to get tangible, to actually start thinking about the physical stuff. This next stage is all about 2 big decisions. What are these clothes going to be made of? And, just as crucial, who is going to make them? A single piece of clothing is often a world traveler long before it ever gets to you. Seriously. The cotton could come from the US, the wool might be from Australia, the leather from Italy. Sourcing the materials is like putting together this giant global puzzle. And here's the thing. Every single fabric choice is a trade-off. There's no perfect material. Let's just take cotton, for example. Yeah, it's super breathable and soft, which we love, but it also wrinkles like crazy and can shrink in the wash. So designers are in this constant balancing act between getting that perfect feel and making something that actually works in the real world and lasts. Okay, so you've got your blueprint, you've got your fabric. Now what? Well, now you need a factory. And believe me, this decision is one of the most critical a brand will ever make. So brands are immediately faced with this huge choice. Do we produce locally or do we go overseas? Making stuff locally gives you a ton of control and it's fast, which is awesome for smaller batches. But going overseas can slash your costs. The catch? You're looking at much longer timelines and, potential communication headaches. All right, the plan is set. The materials are sourced, the factory is picked. Now it's time for the main event, actually making the clothes. This is where the recipe really comes to life. You can kind of think of this whole stage as an assembly line, but for perfection. It all kicks off with the master instructions, what's called a tech pack. Then it moves into making prototypes and doing fittings. And only when a sample is absolutely perfect does it get the green light for bulk production and the final inspection. So if the project brief was the big picture idea, the tech pack is the super ultra detailed instruction manual for the factory. I mean, it specifies everything. We're talking stitch types, button placement, zipper lengths, everything. It leaves absolutely zero room for guesswork. And a really huge part of that manual is something called a flat drawing. And you'll notice, these sketches, they're not about looking pretty or having artistic flair. There's no shading, no flowy fabric. They are purely technical blueprints. They're designed to show every single seam and stitch as clearly as humanly possible so the factory understands exactly how to build it, not just what it's supposed to look like. Now, before a single piece ships out, it has to face quality control. And these inspectors, they are absolutely ruthless. They check the sizing, the stitching, if the color matches perfectly. They even check for weird smells from chemicals. If a garment fails just one of those tests, it gets rejected. No exceptions. Okay, so the garment is made, it's passed the tough inspection. But we're not quite done. It's not ready for the store just yet. Now come all the little finishing touches that get it ready for the retail world. You ever wonder why some of your clothes have letter sizes, like S, M, L, and others have numbers? Well, there's a reason for that. Letter sizing is great for stuff with a relaxed fit, like t-shirts. But for more structured fitted things, like a blazer, you need that precise numeric sizing. And what about that little tag on the inside of your shirt? It's not just there for the brand logo. It's actually legally required to tell you what the fabric is, where it was made, and of course, those super important care instructions. You can basically think of it as the official owner's manual for your clothes. Okay, so you've probably heard the term SKU before. It stands for Stock Keeping Unit. The easiest way to think about it is that it's the company's internal nickname for a product. So a medium blue t-shirt will have a totally different SKU than a large blue t-shirt. It's basically the secret code they use to keep track of all their inventory. So if the SKU is the internal nickname, then the UPC, that's the barcode, is its universal passport. That's the thing that gets scanned at the checkout counter. It's what allows any store anywhere in the world to identify that one specific product. So think about that. We've gone all the way from a smart project brief, just an idea on paper, to a physical product with a scannable barcode. Let's zoom out for a second and just appreciate the massive scale of this whole thing. Just look at this number. That's how many kilograms of wool are produced around the world every single year. We're talking over 1 million metric tons, and that's just wool. It's just a staggering reminder of the sheer scale of the global clothing industry. So, what's the big takeaway here? Every single thing in your closet, every shirt, every pair of pants, is the end result of this massive global relay race. It's been handed off from designers to farmers to factory workers to logistics experts, a whole chain of people all before it ever got to you. It's this incredible mix of art and science, really. So the next time you get dressed, maybe you'll see it a little differently. You're not just putting on clothes, you're putting on a story. So now that you know, will you look at your closet the same way again?
All right, welcome to The Explainer. So, you're a fashion founder. You know that creating an amazing, beautiful collection, well, that's only half the battle, right? The real challenge is turning that creative spark into a business that actually lasts. Today, we're going to crack open the Founder's Playbook and show you exactly how to do it.
So, you've done it. You've poured your heart, your soul, everything into the designs, the fabrics, the whole vision. You've got this brilliant collection you're so proud of. But now what? I mean, how do you get it out of your studio and actually into the world? This is the question every single new designer has to answer.
Well, the answer, in a word, is wholesaling. Seriously, this is the engine that's going to turn your creative project into a real commercial success. It's the strategic path that takes your designs from that lonely rack in your studio and puts them onto the shelves of stores, hopefully all over the world.
Okay, so let's tackle the first big hurdle, shall we? How in the world do you get your brand in front of buyers? You know, the gatekeepers, the people who actually have the power to put your collection into stores.
And right off the bat, you've got a massive decision to make. There are basically two main roads you can go down to reach these buyers. Each one has its own set of pros and cons, so listen up. You can either work with a showroom or you can attend a trade show.
Let's talk about showrooms first. The easiest way to think about a showroom, it's like hiring an outsourced sales team. These are pros who take your collection and pitch it to their huge network of buyers. We're talking everyone from big department stores to those tiny, cool boutiques. And they do it all for you.
So what's the catch? Well, the trade-off with a showroom is pretty clear. You're basically swapping money and a little bit of control for their expertise and, crucially, their contacts. The big pro? You get to stay focused on the creative stuff while they handle the sales. But the cons are real. You're looking at retainer fees, a commission, usually around 10 to 15%, and you got to be patient. Results can take 3, even 6 months to show up. Plus, you might have to give up some say in certain decisions.
Okay, so what's the other option? A trade show. Now this is a totally different ballgame. It's way more direct, way more hands-on. You're the one renting the booth, setting up your collection, and talking face-to-face with buyers who are there, right then and there, looking to write orders.
The difference between the two is, well, it's huge. At a trade show, you are in the driver's seat. You get that immediate, unfiltered feedback from buyers. You can literally write orders on the spot. But, and it's a big but, all the costs and all the risks are on you. From paying for travel in the booth itself to having zero control over who's set up right next to you.
All right, so you've gotten a buyer's attention. Now what? Let me tell you, nothing, and I mean nothing, is more critical than your pricing. If you get your numbers right, you've got a profitable business. You get them wrong, and honestly, you probably won't survive. The simplest, most logical way to nail this is with something called cost-based pricing. It's a really simple concept. You just figure out exactly what it costs you to produce one single item. Then you apply a standard industry markup to figure out your wholesale price and then the final retail price. Let's run through a quick example. Step 1 is calculating your direct costs. This is the easy-to-see stuff. So for this example, let's say materials are $6 and labor is $6.70. That brings your total direct cost to $12.70.
But that's not everything. Next, you have to add your indirect costs. These are the things that are essential to just run the business. Admin, design time, general overhead. In our example, that tacks on another $3.80.
You add those two together, the direct and the indirect costs, and you get your total cost to produce one unit. For us, that's $16.50. Now this number, $16.50, this is your magic number. It's the foundation for everything that comes next. Okay, so from that $16.50, you apply the first markup. This is the wholesale markup, and it's typically somewhere between 2.2 and 2.8 times your cost. So if we use a 2.8 markup, that $16.50 item now has a wholesale price of $46.20. This is what you sell it to the store for.
But we're not done yet. The chain isn't complete until the retailer, the store, applies their own markup to that wholesale price. They use a similar multiplier, and that's how they get to the final price that the customer sees on the tag.
And that brings our product, which started as just $16.50 in costs, all the way to a final retail price of $129.36. You see? This formula is absolutely key. It makes sure everyone along the supply chain, and most importantly, you, can actually make a profit. So, your pricing is solid. Now you've got to think strategically about where your brand is going to live. Because believe me, the kind of store you're in says a lot about your brand. Generally speaking, you're looking at two main options for retail partners. On one hand, you have the smaller, super curated boutiques and specialty shops. And on the other hand, you've got the huge, high-traffic world of department stores.
Going with boutiques is all about brand prestige and building a really personal connection with customers. It's a great look. You get to be part of a tightly focused, curated story. The downside? You're dealing with smaller orders. And let's be honest, there's more financial risk that comes with smaller, independent businesses.
Department stores, though, that's a shot at the big leagues. We're talking massive visibility, huge potential sales volume. But it also comes with big league problems. You'll face fierce competition right there in the store. You'll probably have lower margins, and their operational requirements can be incredibly strict, which can really test a new brand.
Okay, last section. Let's look to the future. Once you've got your wholesale business up and running, the next question is, how do you scale? It's time to start thinking about the long-term vision for growth.
For big expansion, you might look at working with distributors or distributing agencies. The key difference here really boils down to one simple word: ownership. See, a distributor buys your product from you. They own it. An agent, on the other hand, just represents you for a commission, so you stay in control. It's a huge choice that affects your risk and your reach. A distributor gives you guaranteed cash up front, but you lose some brand control. An agent is lower risk, but your success is completely tied to how well they perform.
And then there are two other really powerful ways to scale: licensing and franchising. With licensing, a company pays you a royalty just to put your brand name on their products. Think about fashion brands that have fragrances or sunglasses. A franchisee, though, that's different. They pay you to open an entire store that looks and feels just like yours, using your complete business plan. So you have to ask yourself a fundamental question. Are you trying to scale your brand's name or your brand's entire operation?
So let's just quickly recap the whole journey we've been on. We went from getting seen by buyers, to nailing your pricing, to choosing the right partners, and finally, planning for future growth. This is the playbook. Wholesaling really is the strategic path that can turn a great collection into a fashion empire.
Look, we've walked through the entire playbook, from getting in front of people to getting your money right to scaling up. You have the framework. You know the moves. So really, the only question left is, what's your first move going to be?
Because the tools are all right here. The strategy is clear. The next chapter of your brand story, well, that's completely up to you. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into the modern marketer's playbook, and we're going to uncover a simple but really powerful truth. In a world that's just full of noise, sometimes the quietest strategy, that's the one that works best. All right, let's jump right in. Look, you've created something amazing, right? That's awesome, but that's only half the battle. Because let's be real, if nobody knows your world-changing idea even exists, does it? It might as well not. Getting noticed, that is the other absolutely crucial half. So before you start shouting from the rooftops, you've got to know what you're actually going to say. This first part, it's all about building that solid foundation for your message. And really, everything starts with your copy. Think of it like the DNA of your brand's voice. It's how you speak to everyone, all at once, in a way that can scale. And we're not just talking about, words on a page here. We're talking about crafting that core story that's going to connect with millions of people. Okay, the biggest lesson here is really a fundamental shift in how you think. It's simple. Forget your features. Seriously, great copy always answers the customer's one real question. So what? What's in it for me? Everything else just flows from that simple idea. You focus on their benefit, you speak their language, and you don't waste their time. It's that straightforward. All right, so now you've got this sharp, customer-focused message. It's time to package it up so you can get it out there. And one of the most powerful, time-tested tools for this is the good old professional press release. It's a format that's literally designed to make it super easy for the media to tell your story for you. And look, this format, it's not random. It's a machine built for speed and efficiency. Your whole goal is to give a busy journalist everything they need in under a minute. A killer headline makes them click. That first paragraph, it's got to deliver the entire core story: the who, what, when, where, and why. Everything after that is just backing it up. Your job is to make it so easy for them to say yes that it's almost harder to say no. Okay, so your story is crafted and ready to go. Now, let's talk about amplification. It's time to turn up the volume and really get that message out there. Now, if you're thinking about hiring a PR agency, you've got to ask the tough questions. You're not just buying services, right? You're buying relationships and hopefully results. So you need to ask about their connections. Ask about how they bill. But here's the real pro tip. Ask them what deliverables they guarantee. An agency that gets squirrely on that question, they might be selling you access, not actual outcomes. Big difference. All right, next up, let's talk about a classic but super critical channel: email marketing. I mean, it's your direct line to your customer. But getting it right, well, that takes focusing on a few key things to make sure your emails actually get opened, read, and most importantly, acted on. You know, the winning strategy for email really comes down to just two things: personalization and persistence. That's it. Making the customer feel seen, using their name, having a great subject line, that's what gets you in the door. But the real wins, they come from being persistent. The data is super clear on this. Most sales happen after multiple follow-ups. So whatever you do, don't give up after that first email goes unanswered. And this is such a great reminder that on social media, when you post is just as important as what you post. You've got to fish where the fish are, right? And when they're actually biting. For Facebook, peak time is often around lunch. For LinkedIn, it spikes at the start of the workday. Every single platform has its own rhythm, and just tailoring your timing, man, that's a simple change with a huge impact. Okay, so once you get your message out there, you've got to remember, you're now in a two-way conversation. It's not a monologue anymore. And that public chat, it comes with some huge opportunities, but also some very, very real risks. Listen, sooner or later, the arrows are going to fly. It happens. Every single organization is vulnerable to a PR crisis at some point. And how you respond in that exact moment when you're under attack, well, that can either build unbreakable trust or completely shatter your reputation. The stakes are that high. So when a crisis hits, your response boils down to a few key things. First, you have to be fast. You've got to get ahead of the story. But, and this is a big but, speed without empathy is totally useless. You have to be human. You have to apologize and mean it. And above all else, be honest. A cover-up always does more damage than the mistake itself. Being honest in a crisis, it isn't just about ethics. It's literally the only strategy that works. This is a perfect example of how a crisis can actually become an opportunity. So when H&M got caught destroying unsold clothes, they had a choice. They could have argued or deflected or made excuses, but they didn't. They took action. They immediately committed to donating clothes. And then, a few years later, they launched a massive campaign all about recycling. They took a huge negative and turned it into a long-term positive, all by just showing they were accountable. All right, in our final section, let's tie all of this together. We're going to see how all these different pieces, your story, how you get it out there, your crisis plan, how they all connect back to the single most powerful idea in all of modern marketing. Because in today's hyper-connected world, you have to assume everyone is watching, all the time. The modern consumer, they value transparency more than anything else. They don't just want to buy your product, they want to know who you are, what you stand for. That's what they're really buying into. And look, this isn't about giving away all your trade secrets. It's just about pulling back the curtain a little bit. Share where your company is headed. Be open about how you source your materials. Show off the real people behind the scenes making it all happen. Every little piece of information you share like that builds another layer of trust, and that's how you turn a regular customer into a true, loyal fan. So you see, it all comes down to this one idea. Transparency isn't just some tactic you pull out of a playbook. It's the whole strategy. It's the thread that ties everything else together. Because at the end of the day, greater honesty equals greater success. It's that simple. So, I'll just leave you with this one question. What story is your brand truly ready to tell the world? All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the world of retail. We'll get into all the hidden psychology that stores use to shape what you buy, from the moment you land on their website to the second you walk out their door. You know that feeling, right? You walk into a shop and everything just clicks. The layout, the lighting, the products seem perfect. Let me tell you, that feeling is almost never an accident. It's a really carefully crafted experience, and we're about to break down the entire blueprint for you. Okay, first up, your digital front door. Because before you ever step foot in a physical store, your journey almost always starts right here, online. So what makes a great online store? Well, it pretty much boils down to removing any possible reason for you to leave. Of course, it's got to be fast and easy to get around, but it's more than that. It's about building trust without you even noticing it through fantastic photos, really clear info, and those little security symbols. Because every split second of delay, every moment you're confused, is a chance to lose you forever. Here's a great example of a product page that gets it right. Just look at how every question you might have is answered before you can even think to ask it. The price is obvious, the details are all there. But you know what the most important part is? That little delivery and free returns tab. By taking away the fear of making a bad choice, it makes hitting that add to bag button feel like there's absolutely no risk. Section 2, crafting the space. So let's see how these same ideas, building trust and making things effortless, translate from the digital world into the physical one, where stores are designed to guide you without you even realizing it. Get this, most retailers mentally map out their stores into 3 key zones. You've got the welcoming zone right at the entrance, which is all about that first impression. Then there's the wandering zone, which is the heart of the store, with paths designed for you to discover new things. And finally, the finishing zone, which is where you make the final call, at the fitting rooms and the checkout. And each zone has a very, very specific job to do. But it's not just about zones, it's about flow. Retailers are obsessed with getting rid of dead ends where you might feel cornered or trapped. That single, clear path you tend to follow, which is often a big loop, feels totally natural, but it's deliberately steering you past certain products and displays. It's all about making sure you see what they want you to see. And this whole obsession with a store's vibe can get surprisingly deep. I mean, we're even talking about principles of feng shui. The idea here is that all these tiny details, like a spinning rack to keep the energy or qi flowing, or a single red piece of clothing at the front for good luck, they all add up to create this invisible atmosphere that just makes you want to hang out and, of course, to buy. And that brings us to what a lot of people in the fashion world say is the single most important part of the entire store, the fitting room. This is the place where that final, critical decision to buy actually gets made. The fitting room is there to solve a really basic problem. When you shop online, you get to try stuff on in private, which is great, but then you've got the whole hassle of packing up and shipping back anything that doesn't fit. The in-store fitting room gives you that instant decision, but it only works if the experience is a good one. If it's not, that sale is probably lost. So how do they create that perfect environment? Well, it's a very specific recipe. They use soft, flattering lighting to kill any harsh shadows. The mirrors are often tilted just a tiny, tiny bit to give you a longer, leaner reflection. And then you add in little thoughtful things like a seat and hooks that can actually hold your stuff. The whole setup is engineered to make you look and, more importantly, feel really good in the clothes. But here's the thing. The fitting room isn't just for you. It's a huge source of data for the store. This quote really says it all. The items you try on but then leave behind, that tells the retailer exactly what's working and what's not. Everything from the product's design to where it was placed in the store. Okay, making one sale is great, but the real goal for any brand is to earn your loyalty, to earn your trust so you keep coming back. So how do they do that? One of the most powerful ways to build loyalty is, believe it or not, the return policy. A massive 92% of customers say they'll buy from a place again if the return process is easy. It's not really about the product they sent back. It's about taking away the fear of a future bad purchase. That feeling of safety is what really builds loyalty. The best return policies don't feel like a legal contract. They feel more like a promise. They're easy to find, they're written in plain English, and they give you a fair amount of time. By just being totally upfront about everything, a brand is showing you that they're confident in their products and, more importantly, that they trust and respect you. All right, so we've looked at everything the customer sees. But behind every smooth shopping experience, there's this hidden engine of technology and logistics just humming along, making it all work. Every single time you check out, you're dealing with the point of sale system, or POS. It might just look like a cash register or an iPad, but it's really the central nervous system for the whole operation. It connects that one sale you just made to everything else. It updates the inventory, logs customer info, and tracks the money, all in real time. And to make sure all the data in that system is actually correct, retailers have to rely on the good old-fashioned stock take, a super detailed physical count of every single item in the store. This is that crucial hands-on work that ensures when the website says something is in stock, it really is. It's the hidden work that keeps the whole engine running. So, after seeing all the different pieces that go into crafting your shopping journey, I'll leave you with this final thought. The next time you buy something, ask yourself, was it really just the product?
Or was it also that flawless website, that clever store layout, that flattering mirror in the fitting room, and the trust that was built by a great return policy? What's really selling you?
All right, welcome to The Explainer. Have you ever wondered what it actually takes to launch a fashion brand? Like, for real? Well, today, we're going to do just that. We're going to take that creative spark of yours and turn it into a real, concrete business, step by step. So, let's dive right in.
So, let me guess. If you're here, the answer to that is a huge yes, right? You've got the vision, you've got the drive, maybe you've even got the design sketched out. But, and this is the big but, turning that amazing dream into a successful, sustainable business, phew, that's a whole other ballgame. That's the real challenge.
And that's exactly where we come in. For this, we're leaning on a fantastic guide, the Fashion Business Manual. Seriously, it's an incredible resource that breaks down the whole process. So think of this explainer as your visual roadmap. We're going to navigate the journey together all the way from just an idea in your head to a full-on launch.
Okay, so our journey today breaks down into 4 key stages. First up, nailing down your brand's big idea. Then, we'll build your blueprint for success. After that, it's all about the money, funding, and financial fitness. And to wrap it up, we'll get into tracking your growth and, super importantly, protecting your ideas.
All right, let's kick things off with stage 1, your brand's big idea. And you know what? It all starts with a name. Now, it might seem kind of simple, but trust me, this is way more than just picking something that sounds cool. Your name is a critical business asset. So when you're picking a name, there are really 4 things to keep in mind. First, it's not just a word. It's a key visual part of your brand, something that's going to be on your products, on your website, everywhere. Second, it's that very first touch point, the first thing a customer connects with. Third, and this is a big one, before you fall in love with a name, you have to check if it's even available. You do not want to get into a legal mess later. And finally, once you've found the one, you got to register it as a trademark. That's how you make it yours and protect it from anyone else.
Okay, so here's a massive question pretty much every founder asks themselves. Should I use my own name? And honestly, it's a real trade-off. On one hand, using your name makes the brand instantly unique. Its success is tied directly to you and your reputation. But the flip side, well, it can be tough for customers to remember or spell. Failure feels super personal. And get this, you could even lose the legal rights to your own name if you ever sell the business. So yeah, it's a huge decision with some serious long-term consequences.
Okay, you've got your big idea locked in. Now we're moving on to stage 2, your blueprint for success. Think of it like building a house. Without a solid plan and a realistic budget, even the most beautiful design is going to collapse. This is the foundation, the structural work that holds the entire thing up.
So, let's talk about where the money actually goes. It's so easy to just focus on the cost of the product, right? And yeah, that's the biggest chunk, at 30%. But look at this, your day-to-day operations, that's almost as much, at 25%. Then you add in shipping, marketing, all the startup fees, you start to see that just making the close is only one piece of a much bigger financial puzzle. Really getting this breakdown is your first step to a budget that won't blow up in your face.
And this right here, these are the bones of your business plan. And listen, don't just think of this as some stuffy document for investors. It's your internal guide, your playbook. You'll have an executive summary. That's your whole business on a single page. You'll lay out your marketing, and this is so important, your unique selling proposition, your USP. That's you answering the question, why should anyone buy from me instead of someone else? And of course, you back it all up with a real concrete plans for sales, production, and those all-important financial projections.
I love this quote because it just nails it. A business plan isn't about having a crystal ball to predict the future. Nope. Its real power is that it forces you to get crystal clear on your goals, both short-term and long-term. And, here's the key, the actionable steps you're going to take to get there. It's a tool for clarity, plain and simple.
Okay, time for stage 3, funding and financial fitness. You've got the idea, you've got the plan, now you need the fuel for the engine. It's time to talk about the money, both how to get it and how to manage it once you do.
So, when you're looking for funding, you've basically got 3 main paths to choose from. The most common one is personal funding,
your own savings, or maybe you don't quit your day job just yet. The upside is you have total control. The downside? It's a high-risk move for you personally. Then you have financial institutions offering things like a line of credit. This can get you more capital, but you're also taking on debt. And finally, don't forget to look into government sources. They can offer grants and loans, but just be ready for a bit of paperwork.
Okay, I need you to lean in for this one, because we're about to talk about one of the most critical concepts in all of business: cash flow. The definition itself is super simple. It's just the money moving in and out of your business. But that last sentence, wow, that's everything. Without a contained cash flow, profit is meaningless. Let that sink in. You can literally be profitable on paper, but go bankrupt because you don't have actual cash in the bank to pay your bills. It's that important.
And here's what that looks like in the real world. This is the cash flow cycle. It starts with you spending your cash on fabrics, on manufacturing. Then you make the sale, which is great, but the cash isn't back in your pocket until that customer actually pays you. So any little delay in that cycle, a customer who pays late, a slow month of sales, can cause what's called a cash crunch. And that's when you can't pay your own suppliers or rent. Managing this flow, it's literally everything.
So how do you stay on top of it? Well, here are 5 really practical tips. First, keep a tight rein on your sample costs and limit your spending in the early days. Next, don't be afraid to ask your suppliers for credit. That can give you some valuable breathing room. And this next one, this is non-negotiable. You have to separate your business and personal bank accounts from day one. It's a legal shield and it makes your accounting like a million times easier. And finally, always have a stash of cash for a rainy day. That emergency fund is what will save you when that unexpected cash crunch hits.
All right, we've made it to our final section: tracking and protecting growth. So, you've launched, you're making sales. This is where your mindset has to shift. Now you have to start thinking like a CEO. And that means 2 things: becoming obsessed with your data and fiercely protecting all your hard work.
It honestly doesn't get much simpler than this. This single idea is the foundation of all smart business growth. Because if you aren't measuring your performance, you're just guessing. And let me tell you, guessing is not a strategy.
See, success isn't just one big number. You've got to look at it from a few different angles. On the left, you've got your sales performance. A key metric here is the value per transaction. Basically, how much are your customers spending each time they buy? Are they buying one thing or are they buying 3? On the right, you've got product performance. And for this, the sell-through rate is absolutely critical. It tells you what percentage of the stuff you made is actually selling. It's the ultimate test. Are your products really connecting with people? This number has the answer.
And this, yeah, the last thing you could ever want is for someone to just take your ideas. After all the blood, sweat, and probably a few tears you've poured into this, protecting your intellectual property isn't just important, it's paramount. You've worked way too hard to let someone else swoop in and profit from it.
So how do you actually do that? Well, you have 2 main tools in your toolbox. First, there's the trademark. Think of this as protecting your brand's identity. Your name, your logo, it's your signature in the marketplace. It does cost some money to register, and it lasts for 10 years. Then you have copyright. This protects your actual creative work, like a unique print design or your product photos. And the best part? Copyright is free and it's automatic. The second you create it, it's protected.
So there you have it. We've gone through the whole journey, from something as simple as a name all the way to the numbers that truly matter. You literally have the fundamental blueprint right here to start your own fashion brand. So the only real question left is, what are you going to build?
You know, in fashion, we love talking about the fun stuff, right? The colors, the trends, the big creative vision. But what if I told you the real secret language? The thing that separates a hobby from a powerhouse brand isn't spoken on a runway? Nope, it's written on paper. I mean, we've all seen it, right? A brand just seems to explode out of nowhere. And you might be sitting there with your own amazing designs, your own incredible vision, but there's this huge gap between a sketchbook full of dreams and actually shipping a product to a store. So, how do you bridge that gap? Well, here's the thing. It's not magic, and it's definitely not just blind luck. The real secret? It's something way less glamorous, but honestly so much more powerful. A clear, organized paper trail. This is the set of documents that turns your art into a business and makes sure you're actually profitable every step of the way. So in this explainer, we're going to follow that paper trail through 5 really crucial stages of a product's journey. We'll break down the exact forms you need right from that first sketch all the way to the best part, getting paid. Okay, first up, and this is the big one, knowing your numbers. Before you even think about selling a single thing, you have to understand what it truly costs to make one garment. Seriously, this is the foundation of your entire business. If you get this wrong, nothing else is going to matter. And the very first piece of paper on our trail is the cost sheet. I want you to think of this as the financial DNA of your product. It tracks every single expense, from the fabric and buttons to the labor it takes to put it all together. And really, this sheet answers one simple question. Can this design actually make us money? Yeah, I know. At first glance, it just looks like another spreadsheet. But don't let that fool you. This document right here, this is where your brand's profitability is either born or where it dies. Every single financial decision you make for this garment, it starts right here. Of course, it covers the obvious stuff, your fabric, your labor, but it's the little details that can make or break you. Did you remember to account for packaging, like hangers and bags? And here's a pro tip you can't ignore. You have to include a fabric wastage allowance. It's usually around 3%. These little numbers add up fast, and being totally honest here is what separates a profitable price from a very costly mistake. All right, so you've nailed down the cost of a single item. Great! Now it's time to zoom out. We need to plan the whole collection and figure out how all these individual pieces are going to work together as a cohesive business. And that's where this document, the range plan, comes into play. This is your internal blueprint. It's not for buyers, this is for you. It gives you that bird's eye view of everything you're planning to make, and it helps you balance the collection. You know, you can ask yourself, do I have too many expensive coats and not enough entry-level t-shirts? Your range plan will tell you. And what I love about this is how it visually translates your creative ideas into a solid commercial strategy. See, you've got the technical drawing and a fabric swatch right there next to the costs, the margins, the order quantities. It's the perfect marriage of right-brain creativity and left-brain business sense. It makes sure your collection isn't just beautiful, but that it's actually built to sell. Okay, so your internal plan is solid. You know your costs. You've got a balanced collection. Now, you're finally ready to face the world and show your work to retail buyers. This visual shows that critical moment. It's like a handshake between you and a buyer. On the left, you've got your line sheet. That's your sales pitch. And when you do it right, when it's clear and effective, it gives the buyer everything they need to fill out the document on the right, the purchase order. See the flow? You propose, they commit. Now let's be super clear on what these two things are. A line sheet is not a glossy lookbook for customers. It's a tool for doing business. It needs clear pictures, style numbers, wholesale prices, all the materials, and your sales terms. And when a buyer loves what they see, they send you a purchase order, or a PO. That's their official written commitment to buy. It's a huge milestone for sure. Getting that first purchase order from a retailer, wow, it's an amazing feeling. But wait, don't pop the champagne just yet. The deal isn't officially sealed. Now you have to formalize the whole thing and turn their request into a real binding contract. And you do that with something called a sales confirmation. So after you get the buyer's PO, you send this document back to them. It basically says, yep, got your order, and we accept. Honestly, this might be one of the most important documents in the whole process, because once you both sign it, it's the official contract. If you look closely, you'll see this sales confirmation has all the same info from the purchase order. But here's the key difference. It's issued by you. This thing locks in every single detail, the styles, the quantities, the price, the shipping terms. Once you both sign this, this is the document, this is the definitive agreement for the wholesale. So let's just hammer this home. What's the difference? A purchase order is the buyer's request to buy from you. Your sales confirmation is the legally binding agreement that you will sell to them. If there's ever a disagreement down the road, this is the document everyone looks at. That's why it's so incredibly important to get it right.
All right, fast forward. Production is done. The clothes look amazing. They're all boxed up and ready to ship. We're on the home stretch. Now it's just about the final paperwork that makes sure your product gets where it's going. And, most importantly, that you get paid for all your hard work.
These last two documents, they really work as a team. On the left, you've got the packing list. That's all about logistics, what's physically inside each and every box. And on the right, you have the invoice. That's all about the money. How much is owed for everything in those boxes?
First up, the packing list. This is absolutely non-negotiable for shipping, especially if you're going international. It tells customs officials and the retailer's warehouse exactly what's in every single carton. Then, once the goods are shipped, you issue the invoice. This is your official bill. It lists everything you sent, the total amount they owe you, and the payment terms, like net 30, which just means they have 30 days to pay up.
You know, it's so easy to look at the fashion world and just chalk success up to luck. Being in the right place at the right time. But as this kind of suggests, that's really not the whole picture.
There's this fantastic quote from the Roman philosopher Seneca that I think just nails it. He said, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." It just completely reframes how you think about success, doesn't it? And that right there is the ultimate takeaway. All of these documents we just walked through, the cost sheets, the POs, the invoices, they aren't just boring paperwork. They are the preparations Seneca was talking about. They are the solid foundation that makes sure when your big opportunity finally comes knocking, you are ready to seize it. Ultimately, this is the difference between a hobby and a business. So, the only real question left is this: are you putting in the preparation? Are you ready for your opportunity?